Dead tree, another dead tree, and another one. This whole row killed by voles. So today we're going to work on the orchard and try and get it ready for winter. This is one of the last nice days I think we're going to have for a while. It's supposed to maybe touch 70 degrees today. After that, our highs are only supposed to be up into maybe the 40s. And so I would kind of like to get something done. I'm kind of recovering from the flu, some kind of bug over the weekend. And so I decided to take today off anyway, try and recover from that. But I thought I could go mess around with this orchard project a little bit and get at least as much as I could done while I kind of feel like it. So unfortunately, I woke up to a problem in the kitchen this morning. My daughter come knocking on the bathroom door. I'm in the shower. Hey, the fridge is leaking. Well, we've had problems with this particular fridge in the past. It's a Whirlpool Gold Elite. It's about 8 years old or so. We've had problems with it for about the last 5 years. I'm trying to remember what it's called. The condenser tray where the water collects. There's a little duckbill thing that the water was supposed to pass through. It kept plugging up, and then the freezer would build up a bunch of ice in it. Then it would overflow out on the floor and drip some water out on the floor, and you'd have to get in there and chip all that ice out. Well, come to find out there was a recall on that fridge to fix that, and they made a new trap system for it so that little duckbill wasn't a problem. So I put a new one in about a year ago, that little new trap system. It really hasn't leaked much since then. And so when she said the fridge was leaking, I thought, oh great, that's back to the same problem again. When I go out there, it was a much worse problem than I expected. Every drawer in that, the vegetable tray, the dairy drawer, all of it was completely full of water. And I'm not exaggerating, completely full of water. And when they opened the door to the fridge this morning, I guess water just poured out onto the floor. So when I got out there, they had towels all laid out on the floor. We used every towel in the house trying to sop up the water. What had happened was where the filter fits on, which we never have used a filter on this fridge, but where it fits up there, evidently on the backside the hose had cracked or something. I haven't got a chance to go back in there and really look at it. But it just started spraying water all over the fridge, filled up all those drawers, ran out onto the floor. It created a huge mess. What I'm afraid of is it's going to ruin quite a bit of flooring. That's at Costco. I can't remember the brand name of it. The flooring they sell, that laminate flooring, looks like hardwood, but it's really not. So I haven't had very good luck with this flooring anyway. The joints haven't stayed together real well on it. And I've had a number of different laminate floorings over the years, even some pretty cheap stuff that has stayed together better than this Costco stuff. So I finally wound up just gluing some of those joints together because they just flat wouldn't stay together. And since then they've held together pretty good, but that floor is really susceptible to water damage. If you get water behind it at all, it's ruined. And I'm afraid a fair amount of water got down because that flooring doesn't go out to the edges of the wall. You got to leave a little gap there for expansion. So I'm thinking a bunch of water got underneath. I put a bunch of stuff down there to try and absorb it. Got air blowing down in there with a shop vac trying to dry it out, but we'll see how it turns out. I don't have high hopes for it. Anyway, I think it's about time to head out there to the orchard. I got this idea from one of our viewers, and I couldn't find the comment before I ran out here this morning. But when I do, I'll try and post it here on the video. About using copper strapping around the base of the trees. It's about 2-3 inch wide copper strapping around the base of the tree so the voles can't climb up the tree. And I thought that's a brilliant idea because I got a whole roll of that stuff somewhere. I just got to find it this morning. Wrap that around the trees. I used to use it when I had my own two-way business. It's the strapping we use down the outside of walls when we put a ground plate in for an entrance panel for feed line to go in. We'd use that strapping, a couple pieces of it down to the ground system. And I don't remember how many feet are on that roll, but if I can find it, I'm going to use that stuff and wrap around my trees and protect them. I thought that was a great idea. The other thing I'm going to do is go and scalp the orchard with my old mower and get that down to just close to ground as we can so the hawks and the owls can feed on those little guys at night. Because normally the radio tower that sits real close to the orchard a lot of times during the winter, there's an owl or two sitting up on that tower just waiting to swoop down and eat those little voles. Well, a couple winters ago, I didn't mow the orchard, so it had grass about a foot high or so out there, and they couldn't see those little voles, and that's when those voles really took off and killed a bunch of my trees. So last year I mowed it, and we really didn't have any problems with voles to speak of. I think they may have kind of injured one tree, didn't kill it. And this year I'm going to do the same thing, scalp it, put that copper around our remaining trees. We still have about 80 apple trees out there. They killed about 20 to 30 trees that 2 years ago. We've replanted some of them, but we're going to go do that project today and see if we can take care of that vole problem once and for all. Now, I'm almost ashamed to admit this about this old Murray mower. I bought this mower used in 2003. I've never changed the oil in it. I've added oil once in a while. Changed the belt on it a few times. I'm trying to think of anything else that's gone wrong. It's about to fall apart. Seems like I've changed the spindle bearings for the mower deck once, but I've done almost no maintenance to this mower, and this thing just keeps perking along and cutting. Mind you, not real well, but it does it. I think I'm going to have to jump start it. It hasn't been started in a few months. Ever since I put the mower on the tractor, that's what I use to mow the orchard most of the time. It doesn't cut real close to the ground, but it's fast. Starter solenoid died. Now, before anybody gets all worked up about the dirty air filter and the poor condition of this thing, I don't really expect to be using this thing next year. This will probably be the last time this mower runs, so because the starter solenoid went out this morning on it, I need to get it filled up with gas, so we make sure we don't run out of gas while we're mowing out there, because it's going to be a pain to get it started again. And I figured out this morning that one front tire, evidently the bearing has been out of it for quite a while. I didn't even notice it, but it's wore itself about at least a third of the way through the axle shaft coming out. So this poor mower, it's on its last leg, and hopefully I'll just be able to use it this one last time and get this orchard mowed. But I want to show you one of the best purchases I've made on Amazon in a long time. Now this thing, I've been using it for I guess about a year now. You have probably seen it in a couple videos where I was filling up the four-wheeler with gas. But this little gas nozzle, or electric fuel pump, is probably the best purchase I've ever made on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description below. I have used the heck out of this thing. I've had zero issue with it. It auto shuts off when the fuel backs up into the nozzle. It shuts itself off. And like I said, I've had zero problem with this thing. I didn't really expect this hose to hold up real well, and it has. It's done a really good job. I use this thing all the time around the place. I was really hesitant to recommend it at first. I wanted to see how it worked out, and it's worked out really well. So let me fuel this lawnmower up with it, and we'll get underway. So this old mower keeps giving me more and more fits. The pulley that slides over to engage the blade is kind of stuck. I got it broke loose, but then the mower died in the process. So I'm going to change course of action. I know I've only got so much energy today. And so I'm going to go wrap these trees instead of mowing. And I'll use the regular yard mower tomorrow or the next day or something. But we'll get these trees wrapped. I was gonna weed eat first, and then I kind of thought that over and thought, why would I do that and try and avoid hitting the trunk with the weed eater when I could wrap it first, and then if I touch that copper, it's really not gonna hurt anything with the weed eater. So let's go wrap some of these trunks real quick and see how that works. Kind of want to get a idea of how big to make these. Right there is about 10 inches. I want some room for these to expand. There's some trees a little bigger than this one. This is probably about the average size. Oh, let's see, 10 inches. I think I'll cut these about, I don't know, 15 inches. Where did I put my knife down at? Dang it. I'm almost scared to cut this tape. A lot of times this stuff really wants to unwind in a hurry. That's not too bad. Maybe 16 inches. I'm hoping I could wrap this up tight and it would spring itself, but this particular copper is not super springy. May have to go get a rubber band or something. Put around this. I want to leave it to where it's minimal what I have to do with it. I don't want to come out here and have to loosen these up all the time. I don't know. I don't know if that's tall enough to keep those darn voles off of it or not. I think it will. It's worth a try. I know the rubber bands won't last very long. It's my hesitation with using that. So I rethought the rubber band idea. Decided that's a terrible idea. As soon as I come out here with the weed eater, I'm going to hit that rubber band and break it. So I'm going to use this, I don't remember what gauge this is, like 14, 16 gauge electric fence wire. I've got a ton of this stuff laying around. Going to run it around, and I'm going to make it to where it can slip back through fairly easy, and hopefully as the tree expands it'll just pull the wire back through. I'm hoping. See if that actually works. I think I'll give that a try. It's not the best thing in the world, but hopefully it'll keep the voles off the tree. And we'll go that route. Give it a try, see how it works.
Take a look at where you've been and how you've come so far. No matter where you find yourself, you're always where you are. Go anywhere you go, do anything you do, I'll be with you. Take a moment, take an hour, take another year. Start again or keep going, I'll always be right here. Feel anything you feel, hear anything you hear, you'll never disappear.
Now the other product I'm going to recommend today is this DeWalt 60 volt cordless string trimmer. This thing, my wife got it for me for Father's Day. And I wasn't sure how these would actually work out here on a place like this, but because I've always used gas string trimmers in the past, we bought an Echo string trimmer a couple years ago. That thing's been great, but you got to start it, and then every winter it seems like it's kind of a pain to get started for the first time for the year, and then you got to dink around with gas all the time. And I wasn't really sure how this was going to stack up against that gas trimmer. Now, I will say this won't take the place of a gas trimmer if you're really using that gas trimmer hard. Out in really tall grass and thistle type stuff, I would rather have the gas trimmer. But for 90% of what I do around here, this thing is the best thing to have around. The battery holds up way better than I expected. I can go completely through our yard a couple different times without charging this battery. Now, out here in the orchard with this tall of grass, I'll probably have to charge it once during this process, but that's okay. I need a break anyway. The only drawback, the only negative I've had to say about this thing is this trimmer, or the heck is this called? String head. The one on my Echo trimmer, you push the wire or the string completely through, cut off what you need. Sorry for the wind. Hopefully that's not too awful bad. But you pull the string completely through and then just wind it in and you're done. This thing's kind of a pain. It's like the old style, and it's finicky to get the string in. But other than that, this thing has been great. I'm thinking about taking the head off of my Echo and putting on here, because I use this thing way more than my Echo trimmer. So if you've been on the fence about these battery operated weed whackers, I'd say go for it. I've had really good luck with this DeWalt one so far. And the reason we went with DeWalt is mainly because locally it's probably the most available product we could find. And we try and buy as much as we can locally. And this thing, the only thing, like I said, I have to complain about is the way the string winds up on this thing. I would take it off and show you, but it's such a pain to get it back in there that I don't want to do it. But like I said, I think I'm going to still either buy another head for an Echo trimmer and stick on here, or see if DeWalt makes one that's easier to operate than this thing. And I do have I think it's 0.95, 0.095, whatever it is, the bigger string in this thing right now. It came with quite a bit smaller string in it. I put the larger string in. I'll put a link in the description below to this particular trimmer. And I gave up trying to just shove the grass down around these. I'm going to go ahead and knock some of the grass down before I get in there. Makes putting these bands on a lot easier.
When you're out of luck and off the path, broken and far from home, just remember that you're not alone.
So I messed around some more with the lawnmower. Finally got it started, so I'm going to mow this thing now.
Afraid of what you'll find. Give yourself the grace you show me all the time. 'Cause when you love yourself, you can give that love to someone else.
Well, I think that's about all we're going to have time for today. I got through about 2/3 of the orchard today. I didn't feel super hot, so I took some breaks in there. And I got it mowed down in most of the places that it was high at all, and weed eated around a lot of the trees. Now, the weed eating, that's completely my fault for not coming out earlier in the year and spraying Roundup a couple times throughout the year and keeping that vegetation knocked down around the trees. That's normally what I do. But this year I just kind of let a lot of things around the homestead slide a little bit, and now it's kind of catching up to me. So normally this fall winterization for the orchard doesn't take nearly this long. But we're getting there. And the DeWalt weed eater that I showed you earlier, it did a pretty good job. I got through about 20 trees, and it's pretty tall grass, and it's a lot of dead, spindly, nasty stuff to get through. The DeWalt does a pretty good job on green material. It just goes zipping right through it. That dead, spindly stuff, it has a little harder time. That's where the gas ones got an advantage on that DeWalt. And I did run out of string again in that DeWalt, and had to change the string, and that thing is not the easiest thing to change a string in, but for the normal guy using it just in your yard or small homestead, you'd probably only change a string in it once a year. Trying to cut through this nasty stuff, you're going to go through a lot of string, and it seems to spin faster than the gas one, so it seems to eat the string a little faster. Same exact string in both machines, and I can go 3 times as long on the gas one as I can that DeWalt. When you get into this dry material, the gas one has a little more torque to it. It doesn't spin as fast, but more torque. So like I said, I got through about 20 trees with the DeWalt, then I switched to the gas and did a whole bunch more. And like I said, for the average guy, I much prefer the DeWalt, just to grab, put the battery on and go. But if you're dealing with a lot of this tall, nasty stuff, dead stuff, the gas one's definitely a better choice. And the copper, I'm not sure how well it's going to work with only 3 inches of copper on there. I can see where it'll stop the small voles from going up that tree. I definitely see that. That's a good thing. If they're big voles, I don't know if it's going to stop them or not. It's worth a try though. And I started using some electrical tape to hold those on instead of the wire. I may go back and put some wire around them, but it's much faster to put it on there and just put a wrap of tape on it to hold it in place, and then I can come back later and throw some wire on there. And I was just looking up the fence line here. The dang deer, this fence is about 7.5 feet. The top 2 strands, there's, I think, almost 5 feet of horse fence, and then I got 2 strands, or actually 3 strands above that, going up to about 7.5 feet tall, trying to keep the elk and deer out of here. And it looks like one of the deer got tangled up in it and broke a couple of my posts off. Now the deer have been able to get in here. I just now noticed it when I sat down to film this. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to give you a glance into what it's like to have an orchard this size. There's about, it started off with about 130 trees in here, including I think 110, 120, I don't remember the exact number, of apple trees, and then the rest were peach trees. And we lost about 20 to 25, somewhere in there. I haven't counted because it kind of makes me sick to count how many we lost due to voles. But we still got plenty of them. In fact, this last weekend we did an apple pressing, and we filled up our tub. It's like I can't remember if it's a 70 or 100 gallon horse trough. Filled that up with apples, pressed them, wound up with about 40 gallons of cider out of that. We sold most of it. We kept a little bit for ourselves. And out here on the trees, I think we still got between 70 and 100 gallons of apples left on these trees out here. So I've been trying to give apples away like crazy because I really don't feel like pressing much more this year just because of how busy I am. That and our scratter or grinder is pretty slow. That's the slowest part of the process. Next year I think we're going to invest in a apple grinder, a commercial grade apple grinder, because that other one I made is just a little too slow for my liking. Anyway, I'll just kind of wrap this up. I kind of want to give you a glance at what it's like taking care of this place. When I started this orchard, I didn't really plan this out real well and do a lot of research on how much work an orchard even this size, how much work's involved in it. And so we're at that point where it doesn't need a ton of maintenance for the trees themselves. I mean, you need to prune them, but trying to upkeep everything else is just it's a challenge sometimes when you're short on time. But I do really enjoy this orchard. It's been a real learning experience, and I'm no expert in this at all. And I pick up a lot of good advice from the comments on the channel, and I really appreciate that because I'm pretty much a novice at this orchard business. So any constructive comments are great. Okay, I'll finally wrap it up. Thanks for watching, subscribing, and giving us a thumbs up once in a while. And we'll see you guys. Oh, I just glanced over and saw a critter running through the field. I was gonna let you know, down the road here, just from our house, probably 3/4 of a mile from the house, on the way to work the other morning, a bear, a big old black bear, crossed the road right in front of me. I've never seen a bear down this low before, and great big old bear come walking across the road. And I talked to the landowner who's lived out here his whole life. I think he's 60 years old, and he said he's never seen a bear out here before either. So that was quite an eye-opener to see a bear wandering around out here. So, and I would guess he's probably about a 400-pounder or so. Pretty good sized black bear. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on the next video.